The air in my quiet suburban home felt charged that afternoon, like the calm before a summer storm. I stood in the narrow hallway, wiping dust from a shelf, my sundress clinging to my skin in the warm Seattle air. Ryan, my son-in-law, brushed past me, his body closer than necessary, the heat of him pressing against me for a fleeting moment. My breath caught, not from shock, but from something deeper, a spark I hadn't felt in years. "You've got a rather captivating figure for your age, Elizabeth," he said, his voice low, teasing, his eyes glinting with something dangerous. I should have stepped away, should have laughed it off. But instead, I met his gaze, my heart racing, and whispered, "Why wouldn't I take care of myself, Ryan?" In that moment, I knew we were stepping into forbidden territory, and part of me didn't want to turn back. Hey, everyone, welcome back to my channel. Tonight, I'm sharing a story that's as much about desire as it is about the choices we make when temptation whispers our name. This is the story of Elizabeth, a woman who thought she knew herself at 62, until a single afternoon with her son-in-law, Ryan, turned her world upside down. It's a tale of longing, boundaries crossed, and the secrets we keep from those we love most. Settle in, because this one's going to pull you into a world where passion and guilt collide, and nothing is as simple as it seems. My name is Elizabeth, and this is my story, a confession, really, about a moment in time when I let myself feel something I shouldn't have. I'm not proud of it, but I'm not ashamed either. Life, I've learned, is never black and white, especially when it comes to the heart. So, let me take you back to that summer in Willow Creek, a quiet town just outside Seattle, where the ordinary days of my life took a turn I never expected. At 62, I'd settled into a life that felt comfortable, if a little predictable. My daughter, Suzanne, and her husband, Ryan, lived just down the street from me in a charming craftsman house in Willow Creek. Suzanne, 35, was the light of my life, driven, ambitious, with her own beauty salon that kept her busy from dawn to dusk. Ryan, 38, was a programmer, working from home, his days filled with lines of code and virtual meetings. Their marriage seemed solid, the kind of partnership that made me proud as a mother. But beneath the surface, there was a restlessness I could sense, especially in Ryan. I'd always liked Ryan. He was handsome in that effortless way, dark hair just starting to gray at the temples, sharp green eyes that seemed to see right through you, and a smile that could charm anyone. But he was also thoughtful, always offering to help with small chores when Suzanne was at the salon. That summer, with Suzanne working longer hours to grow her business, Ryan started coming over more often, fixing a leaky faucet, mowing my lawn, or just stopping by for coffee. I enjoyed his company, the easy banter, the way he made me feel seen. At my age, that's not something you take for granted. It was a Tuesday afternoon when everything changed. The sun poured through my kitchen windows, casting golden light across the hardwood floors. Ryan had offered to help me clean out some old boxes in the attic, a task I'd been putting off for years. I wore a light sundress, the kind that felt breezy and comfortable, unaware of how it hugged my figure until later. We worked side by side, sorting through dusty memories, laughing over old photos of Suzanne as a kid. It was easy, natural, until it wasn't. We were in the bathroom, tidying up the cluttered counter, when Ryan's hand brushed against a small pink razor. He picked it up, turning it over in his fingers with a curious look. "Is this yours or Suzanne's?" he asked, his tone light but his eyes fixed on me. I felt a flush creep up my neck. "It's mine," I said, reaching for it, my fingers brushing his as I took it and tucked it into a drawer. He grinned, a playful edge to it. "Yours, huh? What do you use it for?" His voice dropped, teasing, almost daring. I figured women your age didn't bother with that anymore. I raised an eyebrow, meeting his gaze. And why would you think that, Ryan? A woman doesn't stop caring for herself just because she's lived a few decades. My voice was steady, but inside, my heart was racing. His words, his look, they stirred something in me, something I hadn't felt in years. He chuckled, stepping closer in the narrow hallway as we moved to the next room. Fair point, Elizabeth. You've got a rather captivating figure for your age. I bet you keep everything looking just right. His eyes lingered on me, and I felt the air shift, like a door creaking open to a place we shouldn't go. The rest of the afternoon was a blur of small moments that felt too big. We kept cleaning, moving through the house, but every brush of his arm against mine, every shared glance, felt charged. In the tight hallway, as I leaned to dust a high shelf, Ryan would pass behind me, his body grazing mine just enough to make my breath hitch. It wasn't accidental, I could tell by the way he paused, the heat of him lingering against me. Careful, Elizabeth, he'd murmur, his voice low, you're making this place too spotless. I'd laugh it off, but my skin tingled where he'd been. I was 62, a grandmother, a widow who'd buried her wild years long ago. Yet here I was, feeling like a woman half my age, my pulse quickening under the gaze of a man who belonged to my daughter. It was wrong, I knew it, but the thrill of it was intoxicating. Then came the moment that changed everything. I needed to use the bathroom, my mind still spinning from our earlier exchange. I pushed open the door, expecting it to be empty, but there was Ryan. He stood by the sink, his back to me, his posture tense. In his hand was a piece of fabric, my laundry, something private, delicate. My breath caught as I realized what he was doing, his movements slow, deliberate, his focus entirely on the moment. I should have turned away, should have left him to his privacy. But I didn't. I was Elizabeth, the woman who'd raised a daughter, who'd built a life on stability and strength. And yet, in that instant, I felt something else, a boldness, a hunger. I stepped inside, closing the door softly behind me. Ryan, I said, my voice calm but firm, what are you doing? He froze, his eyes meeting mine in the mirror, a mix of surprise and something darker. Elizabeth, he started to explain, but I cut him off. Don't, I said, stepping closer. You don't need to explain. My heart pounded, but my voice was steady. I was 62, not naive. I knew what I saw, what I felt. And in that moment, I chose to step into the fire. The bathroom was small, the air warm and close, the faint scent of lavender from my soap mingling with the tension between us. Ryan's eyes searched mine, a question lingering there, but I didn't give him time to ask it. I moved closer, my sundress brushing against his arm, my fingers grazing his as I took the fabric from his hand and set it aside. His breath hitched, and I felt the weight of his gaze, heavy with desire. Elizabeth, he whispered, his voice rough, we shouldn't. But his words lacked conviction, and I felt the pull between us, magnetic, undeniable. My hand rested on his chest, feeling the rapid beat of his heart beneath his t-shirt. Maybe not, I murmured, my lips curving into a small, knowing smile. But you're here. And so am I. What happened next was a dance of unspoken agreements, a moment where time seemed to pause. My fingers slid up his chest, tracing the lines of his collarbone, my touch light but deliberate. He leaned closer, his hands finding my waist, pulling me gently against him. The fabric of my sundress felt like nothing between us, every curve of my body pressed to his, a silent confession of want. My breath quickened as his hands moved higher, brushing the straps of my dress, easing them down to reveal the soft swell of my chest. I tilted my head, my lips parting as I guided him closer, my hands threading through his hair. His touch was reverent, exploring the contours of my body with a tenderness that made my skin hum. I felt alive, desired, in a way I hadn't in decades. My fingers traced down his arms, urging him to continue, to lose himself in the moment as I was. His breath was warm against my skin, his hands cupping me, drawing soft gasps from my lips as we moved together in a rhythm that felt both forbidden and inevitable. The world outside that bathroom ceased to exist. There was only the heat of his touch, the way his fingers danced across my skin, igniting sparks that had long been dormant. I arched into him, my body responding to every caress, every whispered breath. It was sensual, overwhelming, a moment where I wasn't Elizabeth the mother-in-law, but Elizabeth the woman, reclaiming a part of herself she'd thought was lost. When it was over, we stood there, breathless, the reality of what we'd done settling like a heavy fog. Ryan's eyes were wide, a mix of awe and guilt. "Elizabeth," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "what did we just do?" I smoothed my dress, my heart still racing. "We made a choice," I said simply. "And now we live with it." The days that followed were a tangle of emotions. I went about my routine, tending my garden, sipping coffee on my porch, waving to neighbors in Willow Creek, but Ryan's presence lingered like a shadow. He didn't come over as often, and when he did, his eyes avoided mine, his smiles tight. Suzanne, blissfully unaware, would talk about her salon, her plans for a new location, while I nodded, my mind replaying that afternoon. I wasn't a fool. I knew what we'd done was wrong, a betrayal of my daughter, of the life I'd built. But I also couldn't deny the truth, I felt alive. For the first time in years, I looked in the mirror and saw a woman, not just a mother or a widow. Ryan had awakened something in me, and I wasn't sure I wanted to let it go. One evening, as the sun set over the Puget Sound, Ryan showed up at my door. Suzanne was at the salon, working late again. He stood on my porch, his hands in his pockets, his expression torn. "Elizabeth," he said, "we need to talk about what happened." I invited him in, pouring us both a glass of wine. We sat in my living room, the silence heavy. "I don't regret it," I said finally, my voice steady. "But I know it can't happen again. For Suzanne's sake." He nodded, his jaw tight. "I don't know what came over me," he admitted. You're not what I expected. You're incredible, Elizabeth. But it's a mistake." I smiled, a bittersweet ache in my chest. "Sometimes mistakes teach us who we are," I said. "I'm not sorry for feeling alive, Ryan. But I love my daughter more than I love that feeling. We made a pact that night, Ryan and I. What happened would stay between us, a secret locked away in the quiet corners of our hearts. I didn't want to hurt Suzanne, and neither did he. Our moment was a spark, bright and fleeting, but it didn't have to burn everything down. Life in Willow Creek went on. Suzanne's salon thrived, Ryan buried himself in his coding, and I tended my roses, their petals soft and white under the summer sun. But I carried that afternoon with me, a reminder that even at 62, I was still a woman with desires, with fire. I didn't need to act on it again to know it was there. Sometimes, when Ryan and I passed each other at family dinners, our eyes would meet, and I'd see it, the memory, the unspoken connection. It wasn't love, not exactly, but it was something real, something that made me feel seen. And in the quiet of my own heart, that was enough. Thanks for joining me for this story, everyone. Elizabeth's journey is one of rediscovery, temptation, and the choices we make when no one's watching. If this tale of forbidden sparks and hidden truths moved you, hit that like button, share it with someone who loves a good drama, and tell me in the comments, was Elizabeth wrong to cross that line, or was she just reclaiming herself? Subscribe for more stories that explore the messy, beautiful corners of the heart. Until next time, keep listening to your own story. It's never too late to feel alive.